We're ready to go? Wow, Jimi Hendrix feedback. You're gonna come in there. Okay. I think we're ready to go. It's 8 o'clock now. I like to start on time and end on time, or end early preferably, but we got to get the 50 minutes in. Good morning, everybody. I know we have limited attendees today, but I just want to go through the presentation. And this presentation will be recorded and made available to anybody else that wants to listen in again, or if you know of anybody that wants to hear the presentation, you can recommend that they can go to our website and listen to the presentation. As a result of our last presentation last month, which was on revenue recognition 606, we determined that it would be best to dive a little deeper into certain areas of that pronouncement. And when I say a little bit deeper, we're just going to be really touching the surface on another area. Last one was on the entirety of 606. Today we're going to be talking about one concept of it, performance obligations. And then next month we're going to be diving into one other concept as relates to it before we start going into some other topics. As I mentioned before, today we're going to be talking about performance obligations under 606, which is step 2. We'll talk about that, explain that in more detail. And I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Brad Muniz. I'm a partner at Sobel Company. And with me is
Adam Berger, audit supervisor.
And for a little background on Adam, Adam took the lead at Sobel Company to oversee the revenue recognition concept and runs the task force. And if you have any questions, you can always ask your service provider at Sobel Company, which to give you any guidance, or reach out to myself or Adam. This is a deep area, and I recommend that you take the time to go through and try and to get your arms around it. One last housekeeping item, there's an evaluation that you can download. You need to give us the evaluation to get your CPE credit. As part of the evaluation process, you're going to be given 4 code words today that you have to just put down on the evaluation or send back in an email. And those code words will be given out around 8:12, 8:24, 8:36, and 8:48. So please make sure that you're around when to write them down when we give them out. Okay, those are our housekeeping items. With that said, oops, what happened? Sorry, give me a second. Okay. Let me just close this out a second. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry about that. There's a disclaimer that we like to read off, that the views and statements expressed herein are our own and don't necessarily reflect the views of Sobel & Company, LLC. Continuing on, I don't know why this isn't going down. There we go. Today's agenda, we're going to cover a few different areas. We're going to review again Accounting Standards Codification Topic 606. We're going to talk about what is a performance obligation, identifying performance obligations, disclosures, and one thing that isn't up there as a bullet is we're going to go over some examples. Now, again, these are just some general examples. A couple things that I will say is that Adam and I have attended at least 16, 24 hours on this topic alone. And we still feel that we can learn a lot more just by attending more seminars. So what we're doing today, again, is just a touch on this, and I recommend you look deeper into this, talk to some people about it. And the examples we give today, while we don't go real deep or get very esoteric with our examples, I know Adam and I have sat through some seminars which they just get really esoteric. I know one of our attendees today deals in a particular industry that has some particular examples. I'm obviously not going to give out the names. So if you ask some specific, you can ask questions as you go along in the right-hand panel. You can post a question. We'll try and answer as best possible If it gets too detailed, we may ask you to, let's discuss it offline. So as you see from my comments that this is probably one of the bigger pronouncements that have come out in a while. The biggest pronouncement that's come out recently is leases. I know that there's been some talk about the status of leases. I don't know if you have any update on that, Adam.
I just know the FASB issued an exposure regarding the delay of the implementation of leases for private companies.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Because, and I know somebody on today is with a leasing company, and private leasing company, and that pronouncement is very deep. And if you haven't started looking into it, Adam came in my office earlier and he asked, what's the problem with pushing it off a little further? And I said, my only view of the problem is that people just kick the can down the road further and don't focus on it. But I know that I've talked with some firms that are looking at software, and I've heard software costs up to around $100,000 for leasing software. So that's part of the reason why the FASB said, okay, private companies, we understand it's going to be tough for you to put this into effect. We're going to delay it. But unfortunately for us, revenue doesn't have that luxury. So we will talk about when this is effective in a few minutes. Core principles around ASC topic 606. Revenues recognized when the promised goods or service are transferred to the customer in an amount that reflects consideration the company expects to be entitled. One of the key phrases that you should always focus on is the last word in the next bullet. Is it's recognized when you transfer control. Control seems to be the big aspect as it relates to this pronouncement, and you should always view that as to part of your revenue recognition process and your decision-making process. And Adam and I, one of the things you'll probably hear today, it's very good-natured, but you'll probably hear Adam and I, if not argue, definitely disagree during this presentation, because accounting is going from rules-based to principles-based, and you're getting more of a ability to make your decisions as you think it fits your organization best, as compared to a rules-based where it says you must do it if you hit this bright line. So under the principles base, you get to make the determination, but that means you have to try and determine when the customer attains control, and that's when revenue gets recognized. As part of that process, there's 5 steps that you have to consider as it relates to the revenue recognition process. The first is identify the contract with the customer. The second step is identify the separate performance obligations, and that's going to be the heart of the presentation today. We're going to be focusing on bullet 2, or step 2. The third is determine the transaction price. The fourth is allocate the transaction price to the separate performance obligations. And then the fifth is when you're actually recognizing the revenue, when you satisfy the performance obligations. Our next webinar that we'll be doing will be focusing on steps 5 and in part 4. So if I recommend that you tune into that and listen to it a little bit. Moving on, again, if you have any questions, just ask as we're going along. Certain items are scoped out of ASC 606, lease contracts under topics 840 and 842. 840 is the old lease accounting standard. 842 is the new lease accounting standard. So if you are a leasing organization, being the lessor, you should be looking into 840 and 842, and specifically 842, how it's going to affect you going forward. Because for lessors, 842 does not change significantly. I say that right now. I did an A&A update last week, and I counted approximately, since the lease accounting standard came out, there were 6 modifications or 6 accounting pronouncements that came out that have modified the original 2016-2. Other items that are scoped out, insurance contracts. certain financial instruments as it relates to receivables, investment topics, liabilities, etc., guarantees, non-monetary exchange transactions. One thing I want to say about receivables, there is another accounting pronouncement out there that you should be aware of. It's for credit losses. I think that they're delaying that also. Some people look at that, the title of that pronouncement is that it's credit losses, and they think it doesn't apply to them. Unfortunately, if you have accounts receivable, it applies to your organization, and in a very quick summary, it requires you to analyze your allowance for doubtful accounts, not based on historical collections, but anticipated cash flows. So you should be just getting yourself familiar with it. Common phrase that's used for is CECL, but that's just from background information. Okay. So 606 is effective dates is for public companies for fiscal years beginning after December 15, 2017. I don't think we have any public company people on this presentation. For non-public entities, it's for fiscal years beginning after December 15th, 2018, which means it's effective now. Yes. So unfortunately, we don't just mean now, we mean that it's effective for if you're a calendar year, for your financial statements of 2019 financial statements. So if you're going through if you have a compilation, a review, an audit, and particularly if you have disclosures too, you need to be analyzing this. You should have been analyzing it, and if not, we have 2.5 months to go. Call somebody in to help you through the process. Adam and I have been through this process with a variety of clients. It's very interesting, just seeing their thought process as it goes to the revenue recognition process. Adam, one of our other managers, and I sat in a meeting with a client, and it was a really good discussion between two levels of management and the three of us just not debating, really having a nice, good hour-long discussion what different performance obligations they have, but we'll get into that. I said before in our last presentation, I'll say it again, I think that the effect on companies of ASC 606 for accounting wise, I think it's going to probably affect approximately 10% of the clients that Sobelco handles or assists. I think accounting wise, only around 10%. I don't know if you think a lot more.
No, I think 10% is good, but what 100% of companies are going to have to face is disclosures. So there's new disclosures with the revenue recognition.
Yeah, and that's why I figured 90 to 100%, but definitely I think 100% have to address the documentation requirements.
Yes.
And the problem that you have, I think of that accounting, disclosure, and documentation. Most people look at that and say, how does this help my company? Unfortunately, it doesn't help. I don't see it helping your company necessarily. It's not a value add or to the company, but if you have, and especially an audit done where we as auditors have to come out and discuss with you your documentation of the revenue recognition, you must have it in place. So, just please put some focus to it because it will affect you. And it's, as Adam said, 90 to 100, or I said 90, but 100% of this companies it'll affect their disclosure. Okay, so I've gone through all of that. We're already at a keyword. Holy cow, before we even get into it, what's your first keyword today, Adam?
Our first keyword, and it's only one word this time.
Okay, good.
Newark.
Newark. Is that Newark or Newark? Just Newark? Okay,
just
let's go with Newark. Okay.
The city of Newark, where most people fly into New Jersey.
Oh, listed one of the worst airports, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate the bagging.
Okay. All right. So a performance obligation. What is a performance obligation? I have a difficulty because I guess is where I'm starting to show my age, and Adam laughs at me or mocks me every time, not because of my age, but because of my use of the words. I'm still stuck under the old phrases. Okay. Yeah, deliverables and multi-deliverable. So if I say that today, deliverable and multi-deliverable, I actually am referring to a performance obligation. I'm going with the old phraseology. You should get familiar with the new one and start using the new one. If for nothing else, and Adam won't laugh at you. But the new phrase that is born in this pronouncement is performance obligation. A performance obligation is a promise in a contract with a customer to transfer to either the customer a good or service that is distinct, or a series of distinct goods or services that are substantially the same and have the same pattern uh, of transfer to the customer. So the performance obligation is what you are going to either give to the customer or what you're providing to the customer, and what different elements are built into there. That could be different components. As I said in the past, it was commonly referred to as deliverables, or if there are a few of them, multi-deliverables. And so if you hear that phrase, insert performance obligation instead. Okay, so here's where we start getting, we start with some of the debates and some of the arguments that Adam and I know that we have, and other people have too. A good or service is distinct if the good or service is capable of being distinct. And I love that. That's accounting.
Yeah.
That's
It's using a word to define itself.
It goes to show that I guess most people have a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Arts, because we define a word upon itself. We're obviously not artists. The nature of the promise within the contract are for individual goods or services, and not for a combined item. This is where these are just Brad or Adam's comments. This is Brad's comment. This is where I kind of put my head on a lot of times. Is my thought is, does the buyer infer the good or service as separate? And last time you heard our debate, and I'll be happy to bring it up again today. You've heard our debate about the installation of a wash machine or a dishwasher that you buy from somewhere, and I'll probably bring it up again later on. Everybody seems to say, is it available to be provided separately? I put my focus a lot on C, does the buyer infer the good or service as separate? But again, that's me, and that would be my principles base of it. And the last one, a customer can benefit from the good or service if the customer can use the item, consume the item, or sell the item separate. And that's where a lot of people, I think, put their head. And I think you, Adam, you've said that. Can it be separated? Can they get a distinct benefit from that separate?
Yeah. So if you're a manufacturer or distributor, like shipping is, no customer can benefit from the shipping of goods. Well, within the distributor, you're supposed to be shipping, but the shipping aspect, the shipping part of the good is not considered a separate, because you can't benefit from just shipping alone. You benefit from the good. So that's how I've interpreted it.
And you mentioned that on a slide later on too, and I actually have a question for that, because I had a client that put that as one of their components. So we'll when we get to that slide, I don't want to ruin the surprise for everybody. Okay. Continuing on, goods or services that are not distinct are bundled with other goods or services in the contract until a bundle of good or services that is distinct is created. That bundle of good or services is single performance obligation. So if you have, what we're saying here is, if you have a good or service that isn't distinct, you bundle it with others, or it's connected with others, and they by themselves create their own mass of distinct goods or services. So it just grows like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Until you've got one good or service that's distinct. An entity is not required to separate an account for promised goods or services that are immaterial. Now, that's a very good word to use. I'm happy that it's actually, they start using this in the pronouncement. My fear is that that phrase immaterial is very subjective. And I can see people saying it's immaterial. And if you add up enough immaterial items,
it could be material.
Could be material. You always have to look at materiality individually and in the aggregate. And that's what we, as part of our audit process, measure things upon individually and in the aggregate. Okay, so what we are going to probably do a lot from here is start talking about some examples. We were going to some other, not I want to say case studies, but some deeper examples. But let's just talk about examples of performance obligations, examples of goods being promised, a good produced to be sold, i.e. inventory for a manufacturer to be sold to a customer, right? A good bought to be resold, i.e. retailer purchasing inventory to be sold to the customer. So they're very straightforward, and you're going to find, I would say probably most of our clients, the companies that we work with, are fairly straightforward. You deal a lot with nonprofits, and I know you have some nonprofit examples later on.
I'm a little biased towards nonprofits.
I noticed that. You started putting some stuff in here. Is there any attendee on here that's nonprofit? There better be. No. You better go tell some of your compatriots that you gave them a plug and they didn't show up. But from the companies that the discussions that you've been brought into, would you say a majority of them fall into a generic, distinct good or service?
Yeah, and most of them are, I guess, unique and have these unique performance obligations or anything like that would cause us to think otherwise.
Now, and we'll see from the examples later on that we go through, I've found identifying the good or service or the performance obligation fairly straightforward in the good or service, but I guarantee I'm going to be off on some of them, especially as it relates to the nonprofits. Again, we just have a few slides of giving some examples of services being promised, completing a task for a customer, arranging for someone else to provide a good or service, stand ready to provide the good or service, produce an asset for a customer, or grant a license to a customer. Continuing on, a right to resell, i.e. a distribution network. So would you consider that, and it's not our clients, so I'm not giving up any client names, but you have like cooperatives, the food cooperatives, would they be considered a distribution network? Or is there something else? You're not talking Amway or anything like that, are you?
No, it's more how the right to a certain area or some right to distribute goods in a certain area or like
that's
a certain location, or that's what a right to resell means.
Okay. A right that was previously purchased, i.e. discount vouchers, a right to purchase additional goods or service that provides the customer with a material right. And you see, after you go down, we just keep getting more and more esoteric with certain things. Now, I don't think necessarily that A is esoteric, but I want to make sure I point something out. A warranty is commonly a performance obligation if it's sold separate.
Yeah.
Now, if I provide a warranty as a sale of something I'm providing, so I make cars and I sell cars and there's a warranty attached to it. Put aside the extended warranty. The extended warranty it would be a different performance obligation. We'll talk about that as an example. But just the standard warranty that's part of the sale process, that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the key word is beyond. So if you have a good or service that you say it's going to be in working quality for 18 months after you purchase it, then that's not considered a separate obligation. That falls under ASC 460 warranties.
Right.
So if you have goods, you have to have an allowance for goods that are going to be returned as a result, or expenses is going to be incurred as a result of warranties. So the warranties we're talking about here are like the service, like routine service or routine maintenance that is provided after purchase.
Right. And generally it's common that people are buying for.
Yeah.
As you're standing at the register and, I'm at McDonald's and I buy a burger and they say, would you like the extended warranty on the burger? I don't know what that means, I think that they gave me a warranty that I wouldn't get sick, but I guess I'm not going to get sick 3 more days down the road.
Yeah. I mean, they have I've seen videos of like them showing a normal burger versus a McDonald's burger, and I don't know how they
Oh, really?
the McDonald's burger somehow lasts.
So I should get the extended warranty.
Yes.
Now, if we have any McDonald's people on, I'm sorry. Non-refundable upfront fees, marketing incentives, pre-production activities, etc. Before I go into the not things that are not examples, we have another keyword that we can go into.
The key word is Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Okay.
City right next to Newark.
But one's in Essex and one's in Union County.
Union, yeah. So I believe I was talking about it last night with at dinner. Terminal A is in Elizabeth, whereas Terminal B and C are in Newark.
Yep.
So you can't serve alcohol before 12 in Terminal A, but you can in Terminal B and C.
I didn't know that. I knew it was in a different town because I attended a dinner, awards dinner, and they were talking, the mayor from Elizabeth was there, and he was talking about Terminal A. By the way, you know they're redoing Terminal A?
No.
And I believe it's going to be called Terminal 1. So we're going to have Terminal 1 and Terminal B and C. I understand it. Only in New Jersey. But yeah, the plans are supposed to be real nice. I'd like to see the contracts on that and the revenue recognition on that, tying it back to this. Not examples of performance obligation, a promise to provide a refund, a promise to accept return goods. That almost ties in with that warranty stuff,
Yeah.
right? The number 2. The consignment arrangements in which the consignee does not take control of the goods, warranty required by law, task to provide a good or service that meets contract specifications, product liability, etc. So on the bottom, you had mentioned this: shipping and handling activities performed before a customer obtains a control of good or service. Okay. And now I mentioned to you that I had worked with a client that actually put shipping as a good or serve as a good performance obligation. That obviously it's not. I wouldn't say it's material, but they did put that on there. And we have here shipping and handling activities performed before a customer obtains a control of good or service. So let's say it's FOB shipping point, and we're charging the client or we're charging the customer for the shipping. So is that shipping that we're charging for a performance obligation?
I would go back to what our slide said and focus on the control. So in the case of the control, the good or service is now in the control of the customer. So therefore it's and this is where it gets tricky, because now we're going back. Is a material in the term in the
You're throwing material. I'm the seller, and I overcharge for my shipping. It now becomes material. I can't believe you just threw materiality in my face.
Well, they allow you to account for materiality.
But you mentioned the one word. If they've obtained control, that's why I picked in my question to you. If it's FOB shipping point, if FOB destination, they never obtained control.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a lot older than you, and when I went through the CPA exam and stuff, we had to deal with FOB shipping point and destination. I figured I would never have to deal with this again. Do you see it a lot in your discussions with clients?
Oh, no, not
for
the exam.
Yeah. What does FOB stand for?
Free on board.
Freight on board.
Freight on board.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. All righty. So are there any questions before we go into the examples? Because now is when the debates start.
No questions.
No questions.
So far.
Okay, great. So we're going to spend the rest of the time, and based on the fact that we've been going through the slides pretty quick and there haven't been many questions, we're going to probably end maybe a little early unless you and I go through some significant debates. But we are required to go to 8:50, so we will stay on the line in case anybody has any questions. So jumping now into the examples, and there still are 2 more keywords that we're going to have to go through. So what we're going to do is go through the examples, and you see generally on the bottom of each one, we ask how many performance obligations are there. XYZ company produces and distributes widgets for various customers. Okay. The terms are for nearly all contracts are FOB shipping point. XYZ company has a product guarantee that the product will not have any defects for 18 months after purchase. How many performance obligations are there? And if you want in the questions area, just so we can see the questions area, feel free. I'm going to give you a minute to put what you think the answer is. I just want to see what people say. So, Chris, if you're on and you're awake, put in a number, please.
He went from inactive to active.
Oh, okay. So he woke up?
Yeah.
You know he's going to come running in here mad at us.
We'll deal with that after
The on-air light is on, Chris. Don't come in. Nobody given anything yet?
Oh, we could have a poll.
Yeah, no, that's what I do on my others.
1 billion, Chris Martin.
Okay. So how many, and I have mine written down, so I'm going to ask Adam how many performance obligations he thinks there are.
2. I see 2 from Denise. I see 2 from Joe Hunt.
Oh, Joe.
I see 2 from Anita.
2? All right, so people saying 2. You thought 2 also?
I thought 1.
I thought 1.
Yeah.
I thought 1 also. And I will say that there are going to be some that are clear cut, not in our examples in life. You're going to find in revenue, some of the stuff is clear cut. But I honestly feel that some of this stuff comes down to judgment. You just have to be able to document your judgment, and your principle, your reasons behind the principle. So, which one what you said only 1, and which you just said obviously the widgets, right?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, if anybody wants to say what 2 they thought they were, we won't call out your name. I'm just interested in the discussion. I would think that they're probably thinking FOB shipping point because I brought that up before. So if you thought FOB shipping point, Adam didn't say when he created this. Adam pulled together a lot of this. Thank you very much, Adam. He didn't say we were charging for the shipping. He just chose to mention it, and he put FOB shipping point just to emphasize control. So if you did put shipping in there, it's not one of them. Don't use my commentary before to distract you. And the warranty was just part of the warranty process.
Yeah, that's the assurance warranty, not the extended warranty that you purchase. Or
right.
They're not going to do monthly service or.
Anybody say why they thought 2?
If it's 1, they just distribute. Guarantee doesn't play into it. They don't pay for it. They don't pay extra for it, right? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So if shipping's charged separately, then it's separate.
Right. I would tend to agree with that. I don't know if Adam does, because then he throws out the materiality thing at you. It's
materiality, and then also, does a customer gain any benefit from the actual shipping? Like, if your company's not like Amazon, where it's not, their goal is not to ship something to you, it's to give you a specified good that you ordered from that company. I just don't consider shipping a main obligation. It's part of the production and purchase order and all that.
So the customer doesn't infer it as a separate performance obligation. And that goes back to my C before. Although I order a lot from Amazon to try and get the FedEx guy to come by my house, maybe, that's a great way to view it. Not only does the customer gain any benefit from it, do they view that they're getting it separate? And that Amazon is a real nice example. Besides the fact it's immaterial, I'm not ordering from Amazon just to be able to get the shipment and pay for shipment and have the guy come by, unless maybe I like the guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. ABC Construction Company. Company constructs various homes and apartments. The company has a contract to construct 4 apartment buildings and provide monthly maintenance for 5 years after the construction is complete. How many performance obligations are there in the contract? Again, please just put some numbers up there. You see, we're not picking on anybody for the number you gave. Sorry, Chris. But we just want to have some discussion as to this. And you see, as you're putting numbers up there and whatever you put up, Adam and I will just go back and forth about it, discussing it. So, Amy?
2. So Amazon, not Amazon.
You can probably pop that out to the questions.
Oh. 2, I think 2.
So 2. Oh, wait. Oh,
2
wait, well,
unless they.
oh, wait, we'll hear what they have to say. Who is that? Oh, stop it, Chris. He likes to distract. How many did you say there were?
I said 2 or 5.
2 or 5?
So.
Are they laughing at you now?
Well.
How did you come up with 2 or 5?
Well, so the key.
Oh, wow.
So the key is, can they start using the apartment as it's constructed?
Yes.
So sometimes depending on.
Wait, before you get to that, I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off. So the two are, I want to just go through that. The 2 are the construction.
Yeah.
And the other one is the maintenance contract, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to make sure they understand. So we're separating between the construction and the maintenance contract. So then you have the construction. You're saying that could be broken up into 4 performance obligations.
Possibly, and it depends on how they construct it. So if they're doing one building at a time, and the company that's purchasing the construction can obtain control of the building after it's done and everything, then I would say that's a separate performance obligation. But if they're doing they're going in a rotating order, so they're going to build all the bases for all 4 of them, then they're going to build the
walls
or
beams,
whatever,
right?
the beams or whatever. If they're doing that all in a certain 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then the customer's not really obtaining control until after the.
So that's interesting. I put down 2. Okay.
Yeah.
So going off of yours a little bit more, could it be 5 of them, or the 4? I'm going to stick with the 4.
Yeah.
Could it be the 4 of them recognized in point in time, or could it be one performance obligation over time? We're diving into step 5 now.
But
you see
that's next month.
But you see how steps 2 and 5 can interplay or affect one another and your decision on things.
Yeah.
But all right. So
I think 2 or 5 would be the best possible answers. I don't think 2 is wrong. I don't think 5 is wrong.
But 5 is a great comment. You had 5 based on how they're constructing them, and if they're going to potentially obtain control throughout the process. Okay. Oh, I had a question. Anybody else have any questions first?
And that's
He's having discussion with us at this point. You should just come in here and talk with us. Get on mic, Chris. And how about if it includes design? So let's say what I'm saying to Adam is, what happens if part of the process is that we will design the apartment buildings, construct the apartment buildings, and then maintain them?
I think the key is whether they can take the design and hire another company.
Right.
So, for example, if you get an architect to produce the design, and that the customer can take that design and do whatever they want with it, then I would say that's a separate performance obligation. But if it's design and build, I would say that's 1, because they're not the contractors designing it but not giving anything to the customer.
Right.
The customer might approve it, but they still have to build it.
Right.
So
I agree with you on that. So, okay. Watching the time, we'll do. What time is it? 8:39. All right. Our next key phrase is
Trenton.
Trenton. Wow, you're going with all the hot spots in Jersey, I see, huh? I can't imagine what the next one's gonna be. Let's see if people can guess what the next one's gonna
Yeah,
be,
let's
okay? There's at least two I could think of, but we'll see. We'll see what it's gonna be. All right, so now technology. 606 came out so that everybody's accounting for revenue the same way. And because there was so much disparity in revenue recognition, and they said, we want everybody to be accounting for revenue in a similar mindset. And 606 came out, and I've counted at least 7 or 8 revenue pronouncements that came out addressing revenue afterwards. And they came out with a guide for construction contractors and for IT also. So much for everybody doing it the same way. So in this one, a large technology company provides software as a service. In the contract, the company will provide annual subscription for the software, installation of the software, provide training for the customer, and provide updates during the year. How many performance obligations are there? So wait, we've got, oh wait, so yeah, so please let us know how many you think. I think he's afraid to say something at this point because we keep picking on him. What did, and she's, you said, there, so you haven't, oh no, that's, oh, hey, okay.
That's for the construction.
No, that's, I know that is.
4,
So somebody says 4.
5.
5. Interesting.
4, 1.
Okay. How many did you say? Well, you know what's sad? My numbers, nobody said so far. I said 3.
I would say 2.
2. Holy moly. Interesting. All right. So I'll tell you, my 3 are the subscription, the installation, and the training. Those are my 3. I didn't think that the updates were part of it. I bet you somebody on there is going to say that they thought, oh, somebody say 3? Oh, no, she made me feel bad.
Yeah.
Thank you. I got a trophy.
Yeah.
Thank you. How many did you say? You said 17? No, 2. What 2?
Just the annual subscription and the installation.
Really? Not, how come not the training?
Because the training doesn't, you can't use anything. The training doesn't do anything if you don't have the software. So the training, I guess, is similar to that shipping or distribution part of it, where the customer basically sees it as one good. Like, you can't just give me this software and not train me how to use it, sort of.
Did you use our tax software this year without that training? So I would say most people that I've dealt with, most technology companies I've dealt with, view training as separate because a lot of the clients will take it, and of course it depends on the type of software too. We actually were able to use our tax software without the training, but the training definitely helped for different aspects of it. And does a customer view it as a separate element? So, so some people said 4. Anybody saying anything?
Someone said, but you could use the subscription without the training now.
Yes, I agree.
That's why I don't think it's
that's why she's saying the training is separate of it. So, and these are the type of things that you can go back and forth debating. And
I don't think mine's wrong. I don't think yours is wrong. I think it really depends on
the type of software. Depends on if you could justify. I mean, if it's Quicken, if it's this really industry specific software that can't be used without it, and your firm has never used it before, or most companies never used it before, the first one putting it out there, it might be integral to the use of the software.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with you then.
But I think we can agree that the updates.
They say 2?
Yeah.
Well, there's somebody that's joining you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Counselor, sounds like you just convinced the jury.
I think the updates, I don't think are performance obligation.
No, I don't think so either. Unless they're specifically paying for the future update.
Yeah, so if you're going from like Windows 10 to whatever whatever next Windows operating system.
Yeah, I mean, you said that they're updating it throughout the year.
Yeah,
Which is saying, certain patches and stuff.
yeah,
You want to pay for the separate patches, go ahead. But
yeah.
yeah, I agree with you on that. Training is one other one that I saw, but the technology industry sees this a lot. Okay, so now we go into some nonprofits. A prestigious boarding school. I'm happy that it's prestigious, because if it's a real bad boarding school, I guess it's a different scenario. So prestigious boarding school provides education to middle and high school students, in addition to excellent education, because I guess there are prestigious schools that provide bad education and bad schools that provide excellent education. I'm following you on this, okay. In addition to an excellent education, the school requires all students to live on campus, which is included in the tuition costs. How many performance obligations are there? How many do people say? Or let's see what they say. I missed that one word. I think I probably hinted to them, but I think that would now change that, because and then
1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
So I originally said, and this isn't just the Brad show. I'm just saying because I have it written down and I want Adam to feel I'm pressuring him. I originally said 2 because I missed the word required.
Yeah, that was the key word in this question. So.
And now that as I was reading it on the screen just now, I saw the word and I actually changed. You say I written down. So what you said? How many?
1.
1, because they're required to live there.
Yeah. So it's both the education and the boarding is considered one obligation. You're providing one service. In the end, you're providing one service.
They are required to live there, and we are required to provide that service to them as part of the education process.
Yes.
Yeah. Now a college, on the other hand.
Yeah. If you're a commuter to college, then you would most likely account for it as a separate performance.
If you have the commuting option, right? But only these prestigious schools require.
Yeah. They want to make sure you're not exposed to the outside world. They want
Exactly. Okay. Helpful Charity receives a gift from a private donor to open a homeless shelter. How many performance obligations? How many do you say? Let's see how many they say. No. Really, I was afraid you were going to go with that, with the whole, yeah.
1.
Yeah. Oh. So,
1.
All right. And I was going to tell you guys to stop answering, because when he pulled this together, he was being a jerk on this one. I shouldn't have. Hopefully they could edit out that word of me saying that about you. So nonprofits have some particular nuances. Are you going with exchange transactions?
Yes.
Oh, I hate that. So I said 1 for all the ones that are up there. I said 1 also. And then I thought maybe he's going to sneak in this weird homeless shelter nuance to it, and he's going to say 2. But then maybe he's going to really not surprise us, but go for the new angle that they're going with. And what's your answer, Adam?
There's 0, because it's a non-exchange transaction, which does not fall under 606.
So I'm looking at the list, and so I know that there's some nonprofit people up there who handle nonprofits who said 1, and the rest of the people who said 1 are not nonprofits. So you get a pass on this. Any nonprofit people that said 1 get a fail. So somebody said because for profit.
Chris Martin.
So that's there, and that pronouncement came out recently for nonprofits about exchange and non-exchange transactions.
Yeah. So in addition to when they released 606, the nonprofits came in with their own standard to clarify not only what's considered a contribution and what's considered revenue under 606, but to help with that restriction and versus conditional revenue.
Right.
So under this example, I would say that's a restricted donation because you're receiving the money to open up a
homeless shelter. If it was just a general contribution, then it would be revenue, or
it wouldn't fall under 606.
Brother. Let's get Tara or Kristen in here and they can talk about that for a while. Okay, so before we go into disclosures, we do have one more keyword, and I wonder if people guessed what it was going to be. The last key phrase is
Camden.
Camden. I would have gone with Patterson. Patterson was the start of the industrialization in the United States. Alexander Hamilton. Yep. All right. So as Adam had said earlier, I started off with 10% of the companies this is going to affect accounting wise. Adam said 100% is going to affect the disclosures, and I had said 100% will affect their documentation. You see why the document, we talk about the documentation being 100%, because the discussion that goes into the goods or service that you provide, you really need to have it memorialized what your thought process is through steps 1 through 5. And then, as Adam had said, that 100% is going to affect the companies as it relates to disclosure. We just give you a couple slides just discussing the disclosure. It's going to be difficult for the private companies to come up with your disclosure, because in the past, what we've normally done is we always went and we got the public company reports. The problem is public company disclosure is a lot more onerous than private companies. Good, yay.
Yeah.
But we have to try and figure out now how to parse out what's not required. And that's going to take some time. So if you're, I know I see some of the people on there, recognize the names. Start talking with the people that you work with now and start coming up with the disclosure now, because this is something stupid that will hold up the financial statements. And that is an accounting phrase, by the way, stupid. That's our rebuttal for everything. But this is something that will hold up the financial statement process. So reach out to somebody now and start the discussions as to the documentation process and the disclosures. So some of the disclosures include, as we say here, quantitative and qualitative. A lot less more quantitative for private companies, but the qualitative is still there. The disaggregation between overtime and point in time, that's discussed in step 5. Contract balances, information about performance obligations, we're going to talk about in the next slide. Remaining performance obligations, significant judgments, which is big as it relates to the disclosure mindset where the FASB is going, is what was your judgments? One of our partners here always says it was auditor judgment. And I said, okay, that's not enough documentation. You have to document what was your judgment, what made you create that judgment. And the same thing as it relates to management now. If you have certain judgments or decisions, you have to document your reasons why. Contract assets, liabilities, practical expedience, and then disclosures as it relates to performance obligations. When the company typically satisfies performance obligations, you see the examples there. Significant payment terms, natures of the goods or services being transferred. In other words, the different types of performance obligations to, as we discussed above. When a company acts as an agent or a principal, that's addressed in a specific pronouncement in and of itself. The return and refund obligations, and then the warranty obligations. Not the warranty beyond, but the standard warranty obligation. So we tried to give this presentation to give some examples, at a minimum, just to give you some thoughts, but to also show you how the pronouncement provides for allows or creates a lot of debate and considerations. And as Adam said, under even just the first example, he's not wrong, I'm not wrong in the answers we gave. There are some things that will be clear cut, but a lot of things is going to be left up for judgment and subjectivity. It's all gets down to documenting your subjectivity and your judgment, and running it by your auditor, reviewer, to see if they're in agreement with it. And especially if you're having an audit or review done, my strong recommendation is talk with the people now, because you don't want to be making decisions just for them to come up and say, no, we disagree with it. So start running it by the people now. As I said, Adam, Chris, who we mentioned before, and I met with a client back in July, I think, to discuss their process, to make sure that we don't have anything that, puts a hold on the audit process later on. So if you have any other questions as it relates to this, feel free to ask away. You can always reach out to anybody at Sobelco to help you in this process or answer any of your questions, especially your main point of contact. Or Adam and I are available to discuss this with you. You can tell how we enjoy talking about this, and we would love to come out, meet with you, and talk about this further. So if seeing no other questions come in, I guess, I don't know, you and I are just going to be taped. We're going to our private conversations. Nobody's coming in to
Yeah.
shut us off again.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for attending, and feel free to log off at this point. We're just going to sit here until somebody comes in and shuts us off. You know how to shut off the recording?
I'm gonna shut off my recording.
Okay.